everybody ready to get started?
Yay.
Is this the post-lunch, slight lull that, so it'll be even more contingent on us to keep this exciting and, entertaining for the folks here to get everybody woken up from that great lunch. So can everybody hear us also, by the way? That's good. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to introduce the session here, and then I'm going to turn it over for a little while for our guest speaker here who'll come up, and then I'll close up again. But my name is Murthy Mathiprakasam. I'm the Director of Product Marketing from Informatica. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Informatica. But what we were going to do is kind of talk to you about our approach to data management, and then actually have one of our leading customers here tell you how he actually uses this stuff. So you might as well hear from somebody like yourself who's gone through some of the challenges that a lot of you are probably facing, and hear a little bit about how they've addressed this at his organization. So with that, let me just give, for those of you who haven't necessarily heard of Informatica, or maybe let me just do a quick poll. Who's heard of Informatica? Okay, well, that's great. That's awesome. That's fantastic. So do we go back? Just really quickly for those of the handful of you who haven't heard of us. So we're the leader in the data management space. So we provide tools for data integration, data quality, master data management, data security, data governance. And I'll talk more about this during the presentation. We work with over 7,000 organizations, global organization, been around for a long time. We work with a lot of the leading automotive companies here in the area as well, from which our guest speaker is also from. So we pulled together a little bit of content that I think hopefully, I know not everybody here is from automotive, but a lot of you are. So we pulled together something that I think is a little more interesting to the context of the folks who are in the room here. So first of all, again, I know not everybody's in the automotive industry, but probably a lot of you are. I just thought this is kind of really an interesting way to kick off because, people have been talking about data and big data, and I had a conversation during lunch with somebody who said, like, who cares if it's big or small or medium or fat, or it's data, and there's just a lot of opportunity out there. But I just think this whole thing about cars is actually really, really interesting because it's an area where it feels like more of a niche application of data management, but there's just so many exciting things that I know we're seeing our customers do with our tools and with data as a whole. And Ken here, who I'll introduce in a second, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But just the opportunity to be able to actually monitor more things in the vehicle, be able to take data from the vehicle and send it back to your companies and be able to exploit that information, as well as just even the basic kind of use cases of being able to understand customers better and being able to run your manufacturing processes better. There's just a ton of opportunity here, and I mean some of the numbers on here I think are probably even grossly underestimated, right? There's just so much opportunity here to really transform the entire industry. So I think this is just a really, really exciting topic. Now, with excitement also comes a little bit of angst, and that's why all of us are here today, right? Here's a couple more statistics here. I won't run through each of the bullets, but I mean, you kind of get a sense for. I mean, I will say, to the skeptic from lunch who said, big data, small data doesn't matter. Well, it does matter in the sense if big data means like a big pain in the mirror, for you guys, right? And so I think this is the challenge that a lot of organizations are trying to face is, well, we actually do care about some of these issues because it has impact on manpower, it has impact on skills, and these are some of the things, again, I'm giving you this advanced commercial for my guest speaker here, but these are some of the issues that they tackled very, very effectively. But I think this is really a way to kind of look at the problem statement. It's like you got this amazing opportunity, but you want to make sure that it's actually an asset and not a liability for your organization. Because there's only a finite number of people, and we all know nobody's getting an increased headcount. So you got to be able to actually address these, we start using adjectives like petabytes, and billions and trillions, that kind of thing. That order of magnitude does actually have to be addressable by a relatively finite number of people. So this is just in a nutshell kind of how we look at some of the most critical data management challenges, and hopefully this resonates with all of you. The reason I like this particular slide is because one of the things I also feel is sometimes missing is that these problems are seen as like kind of completely separate. Like somehow the line of business is over on one side of the organization, they got their set of data issues, and then like the IT folks are on another side of the organization with their set of data issues. But it's all connected, right? It's basically everybody's got sort of some slightly different take on the data. Maybe one of the personas is looking at it, the IT teams who have to do a lot of the legwork and getting the data into the right systems. It's a productivity issue for them because they say, I got a finite number of people, but I got more data. Like, help, we got to get this figured out. There's people who care more about the systematic issues around reusability and how do you make this happen not just once, but have it happen over and over again. There are people who are on the consumption side saying, great, I got a big pile of data, but I don't trust any of it because it looks inaccurate, it's inconsistent, I can't use it. And then there's people who are just trying to figure out what even the hell is even out there. There is so much data, we're not even sure what it is. Is it data that we can use for good reasons? Is it data that might harm us in some way? So all of these, I think, are some of the kind of core, and obviously you could probably dig into each of these in some ways. But does this resonate with folks? Are these some of the issues that you face in your organizations as well? Excellent. So with that, now that I've preempted you and set very, very high expectations for my guest speaker here, this is Ken Adelgen. He's from Volkswagen, and so he's been a very, very key champion inside of his organization for using our technologies and addressing some of the challenges that we've talked about here. So what we thought we would do, using our single mic here, is to have kind of more of an interactive sort of conversation, because you guys are going to get slided out all day long, and it is after lunch anyways. So we figured we'd do something a little bit more interactive, a little more casual here. And Ken is the master of all this stuff inside of his organization, so I think he could probably spend hours talking about it. But for the 20 minutes or so that we can borrow him, we definitely want to pick his brain as much as possible. So Ken, maybe you can just kind of start here, and give us an overview of your team and some of the challenges that your organization faced when it came to data, and kind of what's your take on all of this?
Yes, at a high level, we used to have a good old data mass problem in our data center, right? 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now with all the cloud first kind of strategy, we use cloud, Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure Cloud, and on, right? And there are other companies that also have their private cloud. Long story short, the data is no longer a challenge in your data center. Now it's more distributed into somebody else's data center, right? Also, you add this on top of hundreds of data suppliers that we exchange data as for marketing, for agencies, for service, whatever have you. So suddenly, the data is not in your computer center. It is now very distributed. So that's the biggest challenge.
Absolutely. Now, I know you mentioned a couple other things too that maybe these stem from the greater diversification and distribution of data. Can you talk about skills and the team, because I know that's something that a lot of people have mentioned that was on their minds too.
Yeah, skill-wise, that's one of the things, right? Each time we look around, there's a new technology comes, right? There is Scala, there is Python, there is R, we have SAS. I don't want to go into BI side. We have 16 different ones. Because everybody has their own taste, right? One department likes ClickView, other guys likes Tableau. This is arguing about why you are wearing that shirt. You should have a different shirt. It's a color, it's a choice, right? So, but focusing on data is the key, right? If you focus on 80%, everybody looks at the same data, you have your own choice of, right, tool. The same thing with the cars, right? Everybody will be driving Jetta. You will not have S7s and cool cars. If you are buying logical, right? So a similar thing. So focusing on the data, volume is not a problem yet, but it is gonna be with connected vehicles and so on and so forth in the next 1 or 2 years.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on the quality also. Anything else to add on this kind of 80% problem that you're talking about?
Yeah, not to go too deep in the definition of quality, because quality has 5 attributes, right? Reliability, consistency, accuracy, so on and so forth. A lot of times, it's not really the data is bad, it is not consistent with the data next to it, right? If you look at just call center, everything is peachy. But you put that call center data next to the service and dealership and sales, or financial services, now you have a big mess. Which one is more accurate? Which phone number is the latest, right? So that's what I mean, quality is not just good or bad, it is beyond that, right?
Absolutely. So. You made a really interesting point. It's fascinating because most people here probably come from some sort of a manufacturing, industrial background. Because in a way, what you're talking about is if the data management is more industrialized, it actually enables more flexibility. Mm-hmm. So the 21 BI tools, and it was kind of interesting to hear the chuckles in the room. I don't know if that's an underestimation for some people here.
Yeah, don't fight that battle, it's a losing battle.
But it's interesting. What you're saying is you're actually okay with that, because now that you have this kind of industrialized process for data management, you can actually empower and enable that kind of choice.
Exactly. The biggest challenge has been when you show a number to the executive management to make a decision, right? They make a lot of decisions, right? Biggest problem was everybody brings their own data, which is different than the other person, right? So instead of dealing, with shininess or which tool is the now next shiny tool, focusing on data consistency, but having the business have a self-service BI. 98% of reports are created by business, not by IT. Only we have 2% because if they are corporate, part of a project came, right? But general agreement is you bring your data here, give it to IT, so we manage it and keep it consistent, compliant quality, but you use your choice of tool to slice and dice, create reports, dashboards, whatever you want to do. So
Absolutely.
there's a kind of agreement within IT and business. Otherwise, business will have their own silos and IT has its own silos. Then you're not helping anybody.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really important point because a lot of times people on the IT side get that pushback. Oh, you're constraining my choice or my freedom. But actually, you're flipping it. You're basically saying when you have an industrialized process,
Exactly.
we can actually empower more choice.
Yes.
That's a fascinating point, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have beers because I think everybody in the room is like, oh, this guy gets it. It's like totally our problem.
Working for a German company, that's okay.
So, obviously, a part of this transformation that you went through the last couple of years was kind of, augmenting your traditional data warehousing environment with the kind of more big data lake type of environment.
Yes.
So, kind of walk through why, that you did that and, how that's going.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, there are, of course, a lot of business benefits because data lake is not just a data management platform like Oracle or MySQL or SQL Server is, right? You can embed code, you can do data science in it. There are so many things you can do. Not just analytical, we're also using for operational purposes too, like a data hub. But from the IT perspective, like selfish reasons, it's easier to maintain than a warehouse. In warehouse, we have to continue to look at indexes, tune it. If you add index, makes the report faster, but now ETL gets slower because I have more ETL. So tune continuously. With the data lake, it is you add a couple more nodes. It just self-balance, self-tunes itself. So it's inherently it has this load balance and failover and so on and so forth. So it's easier to maintain from IT perspective than the traditional facts and dimensions and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Has it helped on the business side as well? Like,
Yeah.
How has it changed the game for them in terms of their ability to do different kinds of analysis?
I mean, a couple things I used to tell them like, no, because, well, if I let, let's say I'm just making up one department run their reports, they used to literally take the whole server on his knees when they have these monthly closings and stuff, right? When the consultant comes, they go crazy because they ask another question, they run a millions of records pulling reports, right? In the lake, I don't have to worry about it because it does better resource planning. They cannot just take the whole cluster down.
That's right.
Versus in warehousing stuff, you go there, now you suddenly make the whole server busy. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a sort of interesting win-win with the data lake kind of architecture.
Yes.
It's like you said, easier on the IT guys, but it actually also enables, more access to information for the business as well.
absolutely, yeah.
Very cool. So I know you've got a whole bunch of different domains of data that you've kind of taken a look at. I know you're looking at customer data, a little bit of industrial data, and without going into anything confidential or sensitive, maybe you can just share some of the areas where you've kind of brought different data sets together to build this single view of a domain.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what I believe. I mean, tool or technology is not that important. The important is what is it the benefit, right? Sometimes you don't want to get into a hype of cloud and this or big data or data lake. Those are hype words. You have to understand what is it that you need, right? What is the business benefit, right? So why that is important, that drives the data that you need in the lake, right? For us, we have done proof of concepts. We always do POCs to test both technology as well as is business ready for this concept. They may be, they may not, right? Some things we do it 2 years later, they are now interested, right? So in that sense, one of the analytical use cases brought from one of the brands said, okay, now this is valuable to me, right? And then we started small. Lake was very small, baby lake, right?
Baby lake.
It wasn't chubby yet. Now it got chubbier. Now we tripled in size. But it's all driven by areas more usage. It started more on the analytical side and then grew into the operational side like CRM and so on and so forth.
Yes, absolutely. And you've been doing this for a lot of different domains, right? Like
Yes.
you're looking at customer information,
Yes.
Manufacturing information.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Data gets more valuable if you put other data elements next to it, like different departments.
Right. Oh, so
Yes.
you've been able to do kind of cross-departmental data lakes as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's the purpose.
Absolutely. And so they
Going
all.
across countries now and going across brands, that makes it more valuable.
So you're getting everybody to bring their data to the table, and then they can all consume from the same place.
It's a multi-tenant architecture, not necessarily you have to watch out for compliance and who can see whose data. So
Right.
Data lake doesn't solve any of your problems. You have to still manage it like we used to have in Oracle. You need to know what to encrypt, who can see what, that you have to govern. That doesn't make the governance problems less easier, it makes them more complicated. So you still have to govern the data, It's a
Absolutely.
multi-tenant architecture, but yes, infrastructure-wise, it is the same infrastructure.
Exactly. Fantastic. So I know this is a very, very high-level view of kind of the data warehouse and data lake architecture that you set up inside of your environment. But what were some of the other considerations? Obviously, you're using Informatica's technology, through the middle of this kind of the
Yes.
industrialized process. So how did Informatica help, and how, what were sort of the considerations you had as you thought through this architecture?
Yeah, I mean, first question was, do we, besides Informatica, we do this buy versus build, right? Do I use some of the open source technologies, right? Or do I use the commercial tool like Informatica, so on and so forth, right? But when you look at the big picture, that's one of the biggest struggle, total cost of ownership, right? If I hire new skill because of a new technology, right? Then I avoid commercial buying additional like Informatica licenses. But on the other side, without adding a headcount, I managed to train my existing Informatica people, which I have a bunch, right? In a couple of weeks, suddenly I don't have to add a headcount, right? But now I can do big data. So that was the decision point. We did the business case. It was much cheaper for us to use Informatica to do big data management than doing, again, another language and scoops and Pythons and so on and so forth.
So it's kind of one team managing this entire page instead of different teams for every single square.
Yes, again, as you can say, like last 5 years I have the same headcount, same budget, right? But the workload.
You might be doing better than
doubles.
some of the people in the room, so you're going to make people jealous.
Every year you have to get efficient, right?
Absolutely.
We do 90 to 100 projects every year. It adds more data volume. It almost doubles every year. Variety. More than volume is variety is the problem. Complexity comes from variety.
Yes.
Like different sources, different structures. Not necessarily yet. Again, in a few years it's going to be a different problem. So anyway, so that's one of the main thing was for us to why we used Informatica.
So you've been able to address all these new use cases and the growth that you're talking about with the same team, same skill set.
Yep.
Fantastic. Any other design considerations as you were thinking through, what you put in the data warehouse or what in the data lake, or I know you're pulling in data from the cloud, and any other aspects of how you thought through the problem?
Yes, again, one of the things is the education, right? When you have a new tool like data lake, everybody gets excited. Now everybody wants to be in it, right? And then you have master data management solutions or data warehouse, everybody was trying to shift there. You have to be careful of that too, right? It's not at this stage to replace warehouse. 5 years down the road, you never know how it matures. So you have to have that balance, right? I still send projects back. They use data lake. I'm like, no, you don't need data lake. You need MySQL server, right? So you still have that sanity check, so that suddenly you are not. It can do it, but then maybe it should not do it, right? There are advantages and disadvantages of every single tool. So having that balance is important because our warehouse has been there 25 years. It brings a lot of value, a lot of financial planning, and all that stuff is there. You don't want to suddenly shift it to a different platform with no business value. Why do business care? They use the same front-end BI tool. The data sources, this or that, is no business value. So you have to always think of, is there a business value? Because we are not IT people, we are corporate, right? It's our company. So we have to always, spend the money wisely. So that's all.
Absolutely. But it's a good point you make in that kind of judgment and leadership you have to provide, because sometimes
exactly.
people come and they think they know the answer, but you need to help formulate what the right requirement really is.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So, just to summarize, I think you kind of referenced some of the benefits of Hadoop and some of the benefits of Informatica, but anything else that you would add as far as how this new data lake architecture has helped your environment?
Yeah, I will say there are certain things that we couldn't do in the past that was done by agencies because IT didn't have the capabilities, like some unstructured data or PDFs, processing those stuff. Now we have it, so that kind of helps us to better balance the skill set between agencies, what they do. Right? They have also good, it's an ecosystem, so like IT versus agencies or vendors. It's that balance, what IT is good at, what the vendors are good at. Right? So
yes.
we have now better, more servings and more unified data architecture with the data lake.
That's a really interesting point, because I was talking to some people at lunch about this issue of, like, I don't have the right skill set, so maybe I need to go, outsource some things. And there was this debate at the table about, well, how can you outsource data? This is like core to your business.
Yes.
So how can you possibly outsource it, and how do you know somebody on the outside could possibly understand the data better than the people on the inside? So you've solved that in a way, because you don't have to outsource it. You have all the skills needed inside of your own team.
Yeah, I wouldn't say solve it. Still working on it, work in progress. right? So,
But it sounds like this industrialized approach has enabled you to address more of the problems internally without having to rely on
that's
external.
right. That's right.
And do you see that as an approach that would scale, moving forward as well? Like that by able to use something like an Informatica, does that help give you that flexibility to address new use cases and address the data growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for us, it's not like just data lake, right? Some things in the cloud, we are using Salesforce, right? The data is in their setups. Other places using MySQL, someplace else, right? In the Microsoft Azure, cloud. So all the complexity is hidden from the business, right? So the leverage of using like a tool like Informatica, leveraging Informatica, we don't care where it's come from, what is the target, is it data lake or Oracle or SQL Server. We can move data and synchronize, keep a quality regardless of the platform.
Absolutely, and it's the same team, like you're saying.
It's the same team, exactly. That's the keep something you have to keep in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's a big deal because I think that's probably one of the challenges a lot of people face here.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we move on, any final words of advice also to just the audience here that, let's see how we're doing on time. I mean, maybe we'll take one question maybe from the audience
Yeah,
if
sure.
it's open. Does anybody have a question? If not, we'll just ask for kind of a final word of advice. Was this useful, by the way?
Yeah, one thing I will say is again going back to business case, looking at what's gonna be the business savings, what should be the cost, right? I mean, it would have been easier for us to start from cloud, right? So I don't have to deal with the network and switches. We literally push stuff to production, have to reroute everything because data lake choked the whole network because it's so intense, right? You have to segregate it. Maybe I'm going too deep, but the reason we didn't go to cloud because it was too expensive. When you talk about 300 terabyte in cloud, it gets very expensive, right? So never follow a hype, right? We always say cloud first, but you have to think, okay, does this make sense in this context, right? If your data is little, of course, cloud is more flexible. You can go up and down, all that fun stuff, but nothing applies to everything, right? So going back to business thing, right? Okay, this is the business value, right? And how can I do to make this thing work with the cost constraints? So that's why originally we started from on-prem with using very commodity servers, cheap storage, whatever have you. Business still get the value because they need an analytical thing that is going to run once a weekend. It didn't matter if it was down for Tuesday to Thursday, right? So keeping those things in mind helps you start small.
Absolutely.
And so if there's an interest, you go bigger. If not, you stay small.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to make the big data very big and chubby and expensive.
Start with baby data lakes, right? That's the first time I've heard that phrase before, so I'm going to remember that. Well, on behalf of the entire Informatica team, we want to congratulate you on all the success that you've had in your environment. And on behalf of our audience today, thank you very much for sharing your insights. Please, round of applause. So I'm just going to close up here with a couple final slides here, which will be way less interesting than anything that Ken said here. But just to kind of wrap up a little bit and give you a little more background on just Informatica. And one of the things that's just exciting about working with people like Ken is, Ken was in your shoes, a couple years ago, right? And he was overwhelmed, and he had all these challenges that he talked about, and he's actually, gotten over the hump on that. And you can kind of see just from his confidence and the ability to actually tackle these complex challenges. And so, I'm sure you've all seen slides like this. And it's all about the future and about data-driven digital, and a little bit of this is when the lunch overhang kind of falls back again. We're like, yeah, whatever. But this guy's doing it. That's what's really, really cool to see organizations that have been able to take this kind of industrialized approach to data management, and they can actually transform their businesses here. So the reason I think that this is maybe less, let me go back here. The reason that I think this is a little less intuitive or obvious is that there is, I got to auto, see if we can hold on that slide for a second there. Maybe not. Hopefully you'll be able to read some of those sentences by the time it blanks out here. But what it basically says is it's a lot of slightly depressing quotes from customers, so maybe it's actually the slides are too depressed here. But basically it's customers who've tried to do this on their own. That's the most common thing that we see. They say, oh, I don't need this industrialized approach. It's just a little bit of data, and I got a lot of smart people in my organization, or maybe I'll outsource it, and we'll figure it out one way or another here. I might just give up after one of these attempts here. But the point that to be made there is that you always got to think about the long tail. Is that going to scale in 2 years or in 3 years? What's really interesting about Ken's story is if you think about the requirements they probably had when they started on this initiative, where they are today and where they're going to be in 3 or 4 years are wildly different in terms of, like he said, the complexity of the data, the quantity of the data, the types of technologies that are going to be available. So you really have to take that industrialized mindset, because you're not just designing for today, but you got to be able to design for a world where everything that we do, 40% per year growth of data, you got to kind of think through that. And so the more aspirational slide, and maybe the PowerPoint is more interested in the aspirational one than the depressing one, is this is sort of how we view the opportunity here. It's really about having this industrialized approach so that you can get data and turn it into trusted business insights. And trusted is a key word, because you don't want to have 8 people go to an executive and say, hey, I've got my own view of the data. You want to have one single view that's trusted. And it's about having this kind of industrialized approach to the data management, so you get the right people to the right data to the right people at the right time. And people are doing it. I mean, this isn't just visionary kind of talk. People like Ken and many others are actually doing this using Informatica. And one of the reasons I think this approach makes sense is because we actually offer, again, to use the kind of manufacturing and industrial analogy, we offer the entire kind of supply chain. In terms of the key things that organizations need to do, all the way from ingesting the data, streaming it if it's in real time, enriching it, preparing it, cataloging it, governing it, securing it, all the key kind of data management tasks that probably all of you have some degree of responsibility for. It's just one team, as Ken was saying, being able to do all of this at once. And that's very, very powerful, because sometimes you can get lost in just having, once you've decided you don't want to do it on your own, you might decide, well, I have different tools for every one of these features. Well, now you're going to have like a mini IT team just to manage the tools, right? And so you have to be thinking, what is the most simplest and most efficient path here to be able to have the maximum impact on the organization? And so one of the advantages of the Informatica approach is precisely that we give you everything, soup to nuts. And it's that one team, like Ken was talking about, that will be able to address all of these challenges on any data, addressing for any user at any scale. Now, I wanted to spend just another minute just quickly talking about this. You'll notice the kind of goofy-looking brain with a little gear in it. The reason this is actually very interesting is we're starting to embed machine learning into our own products now. So there's a lot of talk about machine learning. I thought this audience might be interested in this. So what we do is, if our mission at the end of the day is to help you guys scale, help people like Ken scale, but without having to grow teams, he actually has the benefit of having flat headcount. I know some of you may not have even that benefit, but we want to take out all of the work that you don't really need people to do in the first place and automate it completely. So we've been embedding artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms in our software. So we actually just go talk to customers and we say, well, how are you spending your time? Oh, you're spending your time looking for data that is around the organization. No problem. We'll just build a scanner for that, so we can go and discover and identify data automatically, put it into a catalog, so you just show up to work and it says, here are all the database tables you have, here are all the log files you have. We've got a complete Google search index for all the data in your environment. Because again, you don't need manual labor for this. It's something that's perfectly automatable. We are able to predict different things because we see the entire environment. So if we can see that there's some kind of load in terms of the data pipeline. Somebody was talking about this outside at the booth here about even just SLAs being violated, where you think you're going to have a batch job finish in a certain amount of time, but oops, there's too many people running on that system, so it doesn't finish right. That means a report is late, which means blah, blah, blah. There's these dependencies. So we can actually predict all this stuff because we're looking at the entire environment, and we can take corrective action proactively, again, without manual labor. The other thing is the system can actually now help you, right? The AI can actually augment and aid your effort. So we actually have technology where if we see users going into Informatica and they're looking at different customer data sets, we'll go in and say, kind of like on Amazon.com where it says, you're looking at these products, would you also be interested in this? We can do that with data. So we can actually identify, oh, there's a bunch of customer tables and somebody's looked at maybe 2 or 3 of them. Let's just show them the rest of them. And they're probably data sets that they would find useful as well. And all of this is just based on our ability to understand the data in the first place. So there's a lot of effort here, around AI, and I think this is something that also you should look at, especially if you're facing headcount issues, because your game plan can't be based on hiring, 200%, in your headcount. You're going to need something like artificial intelligence to do the heavy lifting for you, so that you are focused on the absolute most critical elements of business context. And the idea here, it's sort of this vision of, you can actually, I was telling you that data management is sort of a problem that everybody has. It's not just an IT problem. It's not just a business problem. Everybody's got their own kind of take on that. But the opportunity is the same as well. So once you actually have this brain that's sitting in the middle, bringing everything together, managed by that one single team, you kind of build this common understanding of data across the entire organization, and everybody now has some way to contribute to that. And everybody's contributions help every other persona in the organization as well. So this is a really, really kind of cool notion of modern data management, where it's not about IT versus business. You're all kind of working together in a collaborative fashion, and the AI is sort of the quarterback for the team, and it's kind of helping every player on the field do their part, but then help everybody else in the process as well. So I don't want to belabor the commercial aspect of this, but like I said, we have been around for 20 years. We've done this for a lot of organizations like Volkswagen here, but we've been able to do that also with a lot of partners. So I know everybody here wants to have the flexibility to work with a lot of different technologies, a lot of different channel partners and cloud partners. We work with nearly every one of those major partners, because our approach at the end of the day isn't really tied to a particular data platform or a particular analytics tool. We just want to help you with the data. That's it. It's very, very simple. And so that's a mission that is relevant to a lot of our partners here. So if you work with any of these guys, so do we. And that's something that I think is also very, very powerful. And another reason, again, again, not to belabor the commercial aspect of this, but just in case, I know a lot of you have to do evaluations for products, and when you go up to your management. But Informatica has been basically the leader in every one of the major data management Magic Quadrants in Gartner too. And this has been the case for the last 10 years or so, and we certainly hope it'll be moving forward. So we are sort of a trusted player in this, and I think it has to do with also the fact that we do actually do everything soup to nuts. So there is a sort of group and collaborative value here that just a point vendor doesn't necessarily bring to the table. And so with that, I thought I'd just kind of end the session here with a sort of slightly more visionary view of this thing, because I do think that a lot of what Ken talked about is some of the just very operational things about bringing customer data together, bringing industrial data together. But this is just really an exciting time, when you talk about data. I know all of you guys know more about sort of the connected vehicle type of effort. But when you start to think about the whole premise of getting the right data to the right people at the right time, that general mission statement can mean so many different and very, very powerful things for the way all of us are transporting ourselves, the way we are engaging with information, and the way it empowers each of us to do our jobs and help our customers do theirs. And there's just a really, really powerful opportunity here. So I know a lot of times data management can seem like quite a grunt of a job, but I think you can see from people like Ken, he's really taken on that challenge and used Informatica to turn it into a great opportunity for himself as a professional, but also for all of his customers as well. So this is the best time, I think, to get involved and get engaged in technologies like this. You can really, really transform your business, to be be more like a service provider. And this is the best time to unleash the extreme volumes of customer industrial data, and you can say ... because there's probably all kinds of data that we haven't even thought about yet. So we hope you'll come and join Informatica as we wait for the animation to come and we unleash the disruptive power of data. Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? Maybe we have time for one or two questions, and obviously if it was a question for Ken, he's no longer here, but I can forward a question to him if you have anything, and I'm happy to take any questions as well. Okay, hopefully this was useful. Was it useful to have Ken here as well? Yes. Awesome, fantastic. Thank you very much for coming.